Hello and welcome. Welcome to approximately 15 minutes of some nice deep hip opening. You'll see that I'm squatted at the moment, and this is what we're sort of aiming for. It's certainly not accessible to everybody at the moment. It's going to be involving your knees and your hips quite considerably. It's a great posture for spine and for opening up the hips. You'll know that many countries in the world, people sit like this and work like this, and it's a beautiful posture, but not at the moment maybe accessible to all. So I'm going to introduce you to some little props, and we'll work with the props first of all, and then we'll work into some nice long holds to open up our hips. So what you will need is some books or blocks, anything that can give you height. So I've got some blocks here, and I set them up, and you may want to go quite high, and you may even want to put a cushion on top of those blocks as well. And then we'll have that same posture, and we'll be sitting down. Oh, it's much more comfortable as well with the access of the props underneath you. Now, when we sit in chairs, we really close off the hips and we shorten the hamstrings. So let's think about chairs as being our enemy. And these little props are going to be our friend because they're going to open up our hips quite considerably. So you're seated in your squat position, and the higher you go, the easier this is going to be. And then perhaps bring your elbows inside your knees, and then just use a tiny bit of pressure, not a lot, just a tiny little bit of pressure to open up those hips. So there's about 20 muscles that cross your hip joints. And they do flexion, extension, internal, external rotation. So they do an awful lot of work. And by sitting in chairs all of the time, we really don't work them hard enough. We need to have these nice open hips, which will enable us maybe to do running better, or sports better, certainly our yoga better. But even as we go through life and we go through our aging process, we still need nice open hips to get us up and down from our chairs or from the floor. So I'd like you to think about sitting in this sort of position quite often during the daytime, rather than sitting in a chair. So think of chairs as not your friends really, and think of the floor as your best friend. So the more we sit on the floor, the more we will open up the hips and the more we will help the spine as well. So I'm coming out of this posture. Now you can stay here for as long as you like, and as you progress you may want to take away one of the props or one of the books that you have and just go a little bit lower, always checking out that your knees feel quite happy and comfortable to sit in that position. So that's the very first posture that you can try. You can experiment with and do it for a long time or a short time and just see how you feel once you've completed maybe 3 minutes in that posture. I'm going to remove my props. We will bring the props in again later. I'm just going to remove them for the moment. And we're going to move now into some what we call yin postures. And they are for 3 minutes. I would still suggest that you sit on a cushion, especially if you're new to opening up the hips. And even if you're not new, it's really nice to sit on a cushion. So just sit on the cushion and it feels much nicer under the buttocks. And then you're going to take your legs quite a long way away from you for the moment. Now if you have spine issues, you may want to keep your back fairly straight. If you have no spine issues, we're going to do what we call flexion of the spine. We're going to roll through into a rounding spine and bowing our head. So you just take which position that you want. I'm just going to get my little timer. I'm going to be here for 3 minutes. Remember, tall back if you have any back issues. Rounded back, we're coming forward, we're rolling over, and now we're going to bow our head. And don't worry if you don't go too low, it doesn't really matter. We're just really experimenting in this little session of 15 minutes. So what we want to do now is bring our attention to our breath. So the breath will help you move into these postures a little bit more accessibly. So take an inhale and exhale, bowing a little bit more into your posture. And just now observe we want to be in a position where we're sort of just outside of our comfort zone. We know something's happening and we want something to be happening, but we're not in pain. So remember, pain is absolutely a no-go area. Now the head, as you bow, will also be in flexion. So you can rise up with the head at any time that you want, take a little breather, and then bow back down again. So we can also use these postures not only to open up the hips, but to calm the mind. And to calm the mind, we just focus on our breath, our inhales and our exhales. And perhaps also focus on the sensations that are being created in your body right now. Just taking you into a little bit of a meditative state. Just calming everything down so we can open up the hips nicely. You're about halfway through your 3-minute posture. If you want to, you can draw the heels a little bit closer to the groin, and this will certainly increase that opening of the hips. We have external rotation of the hips, so just check out how it's feeling. Nice easy breathing. And have a bit of kindness to yourself. So don't worry about what position you're in. Whatever your position is, if you can feel something happening, then this is working for you. Just breathing into those sensations, or just focusing on your breath. And then as we leave this hip opening posture, we'll bring the hands to the earth and we'll rise all the way up nice and slowly. And then we'll bring those knees together and nice long legs. And you can continue to sit on your cushion if you want to. Just have a little stroke of those legs. We're working with something called connective tissue, fascia, which surrounds all your muscles and joints. And we're going to open up this connective tissue and fascia to give you lots more range of movements. We're just going to work into the hamstrings now as well as the hips. So we're going to have a nice wide straddle position. You're going to check out your inner knees, not going to be too involved in this. If they are, bring them a bit closer together with those legs. Props, you can bring the props back in again. It's going to be 3 minutes, so we can have high props or low props, and we can even use the props to have underneath us. So there's no reason why we can't sit and watch the TV like this. And we will be opening up our hips. We will also be working in the inner thighs, the adductors. And we'll also be stressing the knee joints somewhat to give them a bit more maneuverability. So just checking out how it's feeling. You can have your feet in any way that you want. I tend to flick my toes up, but you can have them any way that you want them to be. Now, if you have got tight hamstrings, bend your knees. And you can even take those blocks and put them underneath your knees or your books. And then this is your posture. So it's still a great posture. Now, if you have no spine issues, you're staying tall. Sorry, if you have spine issues, you're staying tall. And if you have no spine issues, you're going to flex that spine again. So rounding the back, and maybe take away a couple of the props if you want to, and bow. And again, it's a nice long hold for us to really get into the hips, the hamstrings, the spine, and even the neck if your head is bowed. We're not overly aggressive, we're just easing into the postures as and when we feel we want to move, to go a little bit deeper, just finding your final edge, and then you stay in your stillness and just let that connective tissue and fascia open up nice and slowly. There's nothing to be achieved by rushing anything or pulling yourself forward. What you want to do is yield to the posture. Just yield to the posture and allow yourself to go that little bit deeper. Just a few more breaths and we will complete this 3-minute hold. You can of course shorten the time in the hold if you want to. And we have completed our 3 minutes, so we're going to bring ourselves all the way up, nice and slowly. I'm going to pick up those knees and bring the legs together. And again, another nice little massage. We're just going to do what we call the dragon. So it's a couple of deep hip and groin openers. So you will need to be careful and cautious, certainly if it's your first time in entering to the dragon sequence. So we're going to have a little tiny back bend before we do the dragon sequence. So maybe take away your prop and bring your hands behind you and just lift up the heart and have a little back bend. Just a little tiny counter posture. And then come back to neutral, and then a little lift of the heart, and then come back to neutral. So we're going to come into our first dragon. So we're going to have as many props as you need. I'm going to take 2, you may take 4. You may even have bolsters or something that you're going to use. We're not in these postures for 3 minutes, and you'll know why in a moment. You're going to bring your right foot forward, and your knee is tracking over the ankle. Bring your bricks inside that right knee. The back toe will tuck and we'll slide that back leg away. Now you can have a cushion under that knee. If the knee is compromised, you can have a cushion under the knee. So we're in our first dragon position. You can have the blocks either side, you can have them tall, you can have them low, you can dispense with them completely. What we want is this stretch and opening here. This is a big psoas muscle, one of your biggest hip flexors. But this is really what we're aiming for, this joint here. Now you're going to, if you want to go a little bit deeper, you're going to bring both blocks or books that you have inside that knee now. And let's see if this works. Front toe that you're looking at, turn it towards the outside of the mat. So we're just opening up the hips a little bit more, so it's just diagonally now, but the knee is still in line with the ankle. You should start to feel this. Okay, and you're going to just stay here or stay here, whichever feels appropriate to you. Maybe we'll just take the outer elbow down and the other elbow down. And now we're really into the dragons. A deep hip and groin opener. Really feeling this in the groin and the hip. Nice, easy breathing. Couple of more breaths. You're stretching the back leg hip. Back leg hip flexors and the quadriceps of that back leg, the front thighs. And you're really working into the hip socket. This can also help if you have sciatica. It can relieve some of those symptoms of sciatica. Nice easy breathing. Couple more breaths. Just a couple more breaths. And then we're slowly going to rise and bring the foot in if it's been turned out. Hands onto your supports. Ooh, we're starting to feel this now, I'm hoping. Bring yourself back. And all we're going to do now is remove all our props and lay down on your tummies. So just lay down on your tummies, hands underneath the forehead. And I want you to be aware of what we call a rebound. You're just being aware of what's been happening. And then we're just going to do exactly the same on the other side. So hands underneath the shoulders, tuck those elbows into the ribs, lift the head and chest, and then a gentle pressure through the hands brings you back onto your knees. Bring your knees forward and reset. So cushions for the knee if you need it. The opposite foot goes forward. Knee tracks over the ankle. Blocks come in. The back toe is tucked and we walk the back leg away. Remember, we're wanting it here. Blocks can be either side. They can be tall. They can be low. I do suggest you invest in some yoga blocks. They're really very helpful for all of your postures. So it's quite a nice little investment. They'll serve you well throughout the years. So remember, we can move again in this posture. We can just stay here, just checking out how the body feels. If you want to go a little bit deeper, we'll take all the props inside that foot. And then we'll turn the foot diagonally out. So you can already see that we've got really more of a external hip rotation going on here. And that may be enough for most of us. So these are not, I would say they're not easy postures, but they are very good postures. So just take it easy, whatever feels good to you. You don't have to do anything too intense. And then if we want to, we'll take the elbows down one at a time. The outer one goes out on the block first because it gets you to an idea whether the other one's going to make it or not. And then the other elbow goes down. And again we breathe. And we enjoy each sensation as long as it's not painful. We enjoy each sensation because we know that if we're feeling something, something is certainly happening inside our bodies. Nice easy breathing, no criticism of yourself. If you're high in the very first posture, that's a great posture to be in. If you're low, you can still go lower, your choices, just no criticism. We work with something called ahimsa, and that means we don't have any pain. So think about the word ahimsa, means no pain for yourself. Just a nice deep sensation of what's happening right now at this moment. So I talk a lot while you're in these postures so that you can really focus to stay in the posture. Couple more breaths. And then slowly we'll bring the hands onto the bricks and we'll take ourselves back out of the posture, removing all the props slowly, and then we're just going to lay down on our tummies again. And that feels quite nice actually. It should feel quite delicious actually. And then we're just going to lay onto our backs. Bring both knees into the chest and have a little roll around on those lower backs. Place your feet flat onto the mat and take your right leg up to the ceiling, and then take your right ankle across your left knee. So again, another nice hip opener. We can just leave ourselves in this position, or you have created a triangle. So perhaps you may want to take one arm through and then the other hand behind and lift up that left leg. Now you can have a cushion underneath your head if it feels like your head is lifting up. You can always bring that cushion underneath your head. So it just feels appropriate to you. And we just stay here. Remember that left foot could be on the mat if you're new to these postures. And we breathe. And then we release the left foot down and the right foot down. And take the left leg up and cross it over the right knee and soften here. We can stay here, that's absolutely great. Or through the triangle we've created and lift up the right leg and draw in. Just easy breathing, and remember that right foot can stay on the mat. There's no reason it has to lift. It feels uncomfortable, you get some pinching, then bring the foot back down again. You can always wiggle around until you find the most comfortable position as well. And then stillness. And then bring that right foot down and the left foot down. Now, I want you to walk your feet really wide, so one foot touches the edge of your mat if you have a mat, and the other foot touches the other edge of the mat. So your knees are wide apart. The arms are down the side of the body, and all we're going to do is simply drop the knees to the right. Just drop the knees to the right. Props can go underneath the knees if you want to. Just easy breathing. Just a nice little spinal rotation to finish your practice, and an internal and external hip rotation. And then over back to the other side, and again remember you can have props to go underneath those knees to make it more accessible. And we'll do that one more time. Back to the center, over to the right. Back to the center and over to the left. And then back to the center, bring the feet together. We're just going to roll over to the right. And I'm coming up to say goodbye to you. So that may be maybe a bit more than 50 minutes, I'm not sure. I get carried away when I'm doing these videos. I try to do the timing. What I would like you to do though is you can do this practice every day. You can do this every day for maybe a month and see if those hips really do get open. I'd like you also to try as much as you can to sit on the floor. Your hips will benefit and your spine will benefit. Thank you for joining me. I'll pop some more hip openers on in a different sequence. If you didn't like this one, check out the new sequences that will follow. Thank you. Namaste.